Hello and welcome to the Stack Exchange, where we cast our thoughts and let our arguments resolve. I'm Tristan.
And I'm Tyler, and today we're going to be talking about universes beyond.
With the success of recent sets such as Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy being utilized as universes beyond sets in Magic the Gathering, we really started to think about what sets we would like to see in Magic the Gathering next.
The series we're about to talk about are a mixture of series we'd really like to see and those that we think would fit well in the Magic universe, as well as one of them that we think would just be good at bringing people into playing Magic. For each of these sets, we decided to make a couple of cards that we felt kind of show what our vision for the set would be. So, how about you start us off, Tristan?
Thank you, Tyler. So, for the first set, and it's a set that I've wanted for a long time for a lot of reasons. I'm a longtime fan of this series, and I think it really does work super well in Magic the Gathering, and that is Dune. The first card I created to kind of show off what I think would be cool for a Dune set is Crysknife. Tooth of the Maker is a 2-cost artifact equipment that attaches itself to a target creature when it enters the battlefield. It gives the equipped creature +1/+0 and Death Touch and First Strike. It also has the ability, whenever this equipment becomes unattached from a creature or is targeted by any spell, sacrifice it. I think that giving a creature the keywords Death Touch and First Strike is a perfect example of the power that a Crysknife offers. I think that its last ability of being destroyed or sacrificed rather when it becomes unattached from a creature or targeted by a spell symbolizes its fragility and the fact that it is like this organic weapon. In the movies, they talk about a 2 million, maybe 10 million Solari bounty on bringing a Crysknife off planet. And so it's obviously something that's very hard to obtain outside of the planet. So just having it be sacrificed when it's targeted by a spell, like a steel equipment spell, is something that really symbolizes, its fragility in the movie while also demonstrating its power. The next card I created for this Dune set is Paul Muad'Dib Atreides. Of course, how could you not have a Dune set without Paul? Paul, I decided to go with having no black in his color identity because throughout the series, his morality is pretty ambiguous. You never really know if he's good or bad, so I didn't want to give him black to kind of define that feature. Paul is a legendary human warrior with 2 power and 2 toughness that has the following abilities. Desert Walk. Attacking creatures you control gain menace if the player they are attacking controls a desert, and they get +1/+0 for each desert that player controls. Additionally, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a sand counter onto target land. It becomes a desert in addition to its other types. And then, whenever Paul attacks, create a 1/1 white and red warrior token for each desert your opponents control. I think that while this is quite wordy, it does a perfect job of setting the atmosphere of a Fremen strike, of them laying low under the desert, waiting to strike, led by their leader, Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, who is buffing them up and preparing them for battle. I just think that this card perfectly symbolizes Paul throughout those middle stages of the Dune story, when he is becoming one with the Fremen and still fighting against these Harkonnens. Overall, I think this is just a really cool card. Whether it's like this or not, I really just want to see Paul and a Dune set in Magic the Gathering. With that being said, let's get on to the last card I have for the Dune Universes Beyond set. Lady Jessica, the Bene Gesserit sister. She is a 1 hybrid Selesnya and a blue for a legendary creature human shaman that is a 1/3. And she has the following abilities. Pay Azorius, so white and blue, for target creature cannot attack or block this turn. Activate it only once each turn. And then pay 2 and Simic, so green and blue, for target creature fights another target creature. If one or more creature die this way, draw a card. Activate only once each turn. The idea behind these 2 abilities is to use the color identity of Bant to introduce the control and fighting aspect that the voice of a Bene Gesserit offers. We see throughout the series Lady Jessica use the voice multiple times on different people. So making it so that they cannot attack or block kind of resists them, using the voice to control and stop people. And the second ability really demonstrates the parts where we see Jessica use her voice to have her enemies fight each other for her own benefit. I just think that the color identity matches perfectly, and this set of abilities really encapsulates using the voice while being just like this kind of quiet human tucked to the side that no one really notices. All in all, I think this is a really cool card design, and I think that these three cards together can kind of give you an idea of the direction I'd want to go with this set.
I really, really like these cards. I think Dune would be the perfect fit for a Magic the Gathering set. I feel like it fits so well in universe. And with the new Edge of Eternity's planets and spaceships, I think there's so much potential for this. We've actually been discussing making separate videos where we do a full set for each of these series. So if you're interested in any of that, please let us know down in the comments. And if you have any other series you'd like us to look into making a Universes Beyond kind of cards like this for, let us know. All right, now moving on to one of the series that I worked on. This isn't one that I personally would like to see too much, but I think it could be a very good way to get more people into Magic the Gathering, and that is Mario. The first card I made was Luigi the Brave. Luigi is a 1 in Selesnya, 1/3 human, and he has two abilities. The first one is tap and 1 to exile a creature or a card in any player's graveyard until Luigi the Brave leaves the battlefield. This version of Luigi's kind of based off that Luigi's Mansion where he has the vacuum and he's going around sucking up all the different ghosts. So this is supposed to be you can either exile a creature or some sort of ghost from the graveyard kind of thing. Luigi then has a second ability where he pays 3 in green, and he can flip a face-down permanent face up. If it's a permanent, it stays on the battlefield. If not, you exile it. This is kind of like the flashlight when you're going through and revealing stuff in the mansion. So I think it's kind of cool to be like, oh, you have your face-down permanents, which are supposed to be like hidden away, but then you have Luigi who just like flashes a light on them, and you can flip it up and see. I think it'd also be cool to use on your own cards as well. Cheat some stuff out for low and then flip them up. This works really well with how like Duskmourn gave a lot more support with the Manifest Dread keyword. I think there's a lot of potential, and I think he has a lot of different use cases. One, you can use the tap ability to lock people out of certain pieces while you have them there, and then 2, you can use the second ability to flip up permanents you've cheated out. The next card I made for this is, of course, Mario. Super Mario is 1 and Gruul. He's a 1/3 human with, if he were to be blocked by another creature, if they have less toughness than Mario, destroy that creature. And then if Mario were to die and be sent to the graveyard, instead return him to the battlefield as a 1/1, then place a finality counter on him. The first ability kind of shows how in Mario, if you're bigger than the target you're jumping on, they die. So if he has a higher toughness and he gets blocked, then he still wins out. It's less about power for his power. Power does the damage to people, but his toughness is what uses to get like through and destroy creatures. And then the second ability is a kind of a callback to when you have a mushroom in your full size, you take damage, you get smaller. So that's kind of supposed to be embody this. You get smaller, and then if it dies again, then he's gone. And the last of the cards I made was Yoshi Trusted Companion. This is actually my favorite card, I think, out of the ones I made. Yoshi is a 4 and a green 2/2 dinosaur mount. And if a creature that saddled Yoshi this turn were to die, instead destroy Yoshi Trusted Companion, I would change that to sacrifice, because if not, that could be a little broken. But then he has the ability to pay 1 and a green and exile an attacking creature until Yoshi leaves the battlefield. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, place all of the cards exiled with Yoshi into their owner's graveyards, and then put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshi for each card put into a graveyard this way. And then Yoshi also has Saddle 1. So the ideas behind these abilities are, the first one is kind of like how in Mario, if you're riding Yoshi and you were to take damage, instead you lose Yoshi. And then the second ability is Yoshi's ability to eat projectiles and different enemies. The first one, you eat them and it gets put in your mouth, and then you have to use the ability again to fully swallow them, and that usually gives you like points or whatnot.
Yeah, no, I really like the card design here. I think that there's so many different directions you can go. I like how you kind of encapsulated some of the core mechanics to Mario into Magic the Gathering. But we just saw like a Sonic set where they utilized different effects throughout that series that also can work in Magic, kind of like the super state that they had, the equipment. No, it was an aura, I believe. So something like that could be cool with like using mushrooms as auras or tokens to buff stuff up could also be really cool. I think there's just a lot of ways you can go with this. So now on to the last set that I made some card designs for, and that is a personal favorite of mine, Batman. The first card I designed for this set is Batman, the Dark Knight. He is a 1 and Esper for a 2/4 legendary creature Bat Warrior with First Strike. And if a creature would be dealt lethal damage by Batman, instead exile it. Return it to the battlefield under your control, except it's a 0/1 villain with no abilities. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature left the battlefield this turn, investigate. I really like the idea behind the second ability on here, which is, I mean, technically right below first strike, so second ability, but the first ability on here, which is that Batman just doesn't kill. So when he would be dealing lethal damage, instead you're going to be detaining these criminals and villains, that he's beating up and punching into a pulp and then just pulling them off to the side and not having to worry about them. None of them are actually dying per se. So that's kind of a way to get around, his number one rule of don't kill. And then everyone knows Batman's the greatest detective of all time, so he's got to do some investigating. And the creature leaving the battlefield kind of works with him exiling opponent's creatures and then gaining control of them. Also, you're an Esper, so you can do some fun blink stuff, as well as stuff with draw, thanks to blue, and discarding as well. Overall, I think that this card would be really cool to see. You can make a ton of different Batmans too for different stages in his storyline, the different versions of Batman, but this is the one I decided to go with. The second card I designed for this set is Joker, Master of Madness. He costs 2 and Grixis for a 1/4 legendary creature rogue villain with the following abilities. Spells you own have madness. Their madness cost is equal to their mana cost. You may exile cards from your graveyard to pay for madness. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting those spells pays for 1 colorless. That is basically just a way of saying, hey, your madness costs have delve as well, but only if you're casting them for madness. I think that this plays perfectly into the idea behind Joker just being kind of this chaotic guy where you don't really know what's going to happen. Is he going to discard this massive creature and then just give everything to put it onto the battlefield, or is he just going to be generating value by doing these one little discards and then the next thing you discard, delving the card you just discarded away to pay for the new card? There's a lot of ways you can go with this, and I think that Grixis already has some good discard synergy, but we've been seeing more and more, especially with Mayhem in the Spider-Man set. So this is something I'd love to see. Again, Joker, you can take this card in many different ways. This is just the way I did it, but I think there could be multiple Joker cards in a Batman set. And then the last card I designed for this set is Two-Face, the Split Man. Two-Face costs 3 Hybrid Orzhov and a red for a 1/1 legendary creature human villain with the following abilities. Menace, and when Two-Face enters, for each creature, flip a coin. If you win the flip, destroy that creature. And then, whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card and lose a life. This ability only triggers once each turn. And then also, whenever a creature you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Two-Face. I think that this kind of ties everything like from Magic, like the color identity, to Two-Face's character, right? You're introducing a little bit of chaos by trying to clear the entire board, not excluding your own creatures, which is important to note. Also, it could also be Harvey because it says each creature and it's an enters ability, so he'll already be on the battlefield. I keep saying Harvey, sorry, I mean Two-Face, which I find really funny because there are points where he flips the gun on himself. And then whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard, you're going to draw a card, kind of like that Midnight Reaper effect, just to gain a benefit off of, getting that kill and then moving on, but it's only happening once per turn to kind of limit because card draw is crazy. And then also, he's a 1/1 with Menace, but as he kills, he's going to be gaining more of a bloodlust, continuing on, swinging in, attacking other people. So I think that buffing him up from a 1/1 is also plays into his character while playing into the color identity of white and red. Overall, I think that this is the way I would go for this design, but just like every other character, there's a million different ways to take it. Feel free to leave any comments down below if you do something any other way for one of these Batman cards. And I love Batman, so I think it would be really cool to see Batman getting a set, especially with Marvel and other comics getting sets in Magic the Gathering. Yeah,
I really like these cards. There's so much potential to a Batman set. Once
I
again,
know.
this is another one of those sets that we might do a future video on, doing a complete set. So if you'd like to see that, drop a comment down below. All right, and the last of the series that we have prepped for today is for Magi of the Labyrinth of Magic. It's a lesser known anime and manga that I really enjoy. The first two cards I made are a partners with, and those are for Aladdin the Fourth Magi and Ugo, Guardian of the Sacred Palace. Aladdin is a 1 in Izzet human wizard that's a 1/2, and he has 2 activated abilities. The first costs X, X, and double red to deal X damage to X target creatures. I'm going to later change this to up to X target creatures if I were to do this again. And it mimics his ability of where he creates a bunch of fireballs and starts shooting them at people. His second ability costs X, blue, and red. For X target creatures cannot block this turn. In the series, Aladdin has the ability to make smoke screens, so this is kind of mimicking that idea of like blinding your opponent by pulling out a smoke screen and putting it in front of them. And then Aladdin's partner card, Ugo, Guardian of the Sacred Palace, is 2 red, and a green for a 3/3 Djinn Wizard Giant. Simple abilities. He has Trample, he gets +1 power for each mountain you control, and +1 toughness for each forest you control. I think these make a really good combination of commanders. You have Ugo, who goes big and just smacks people in the face, and then you have Aladdin, who's a bit more controlling. He can make it so bigger creatures can't block Ugo, so Ugo's safer to swing out. And then he also has the ability to deal damage to littler creatures to clear out a bunch of little guys. I think it's a really good way to...
Honestly, I don't know much about this series, but I just think the card design is really cool. I'd love to see more partners with. I don't think the partner mechanic in itself is very good, but partners with is a good way to limit that. And I just like how you get the duality of the Izzet control with the Gruul Stompy in here. Really good design. I like it.
Now moving on to what I see as like the main like mechanic of this set, since it is also like the main power system of Magi in its series, and that is the like Djinn equipped in the Djinn metal vessels. To start with, the example I made was using Alibaba Saluja King Vessel. Alibaba is one of the main characters, but Alibaba costs Boros. He is a 2/2 human noble with first strike. Alibaba has an ability called Djinn Equipped Amon. You'll see the theme for this set would be these Djinn equipped abilities and certain creatures equipped with certain artifacts. So this one is for Amon, which how Djinn Equipped Amon works is exile this creature and flip Amon's metal vessel over. It gains haste until end of turn. To do this, you have to pay 2 red and a white, and you can only activate this ability if you have Amon's metal vessel equipped to Alibaba. I also would like to say that I would tweak this wording a little bit. Instead of having the creature have done damage, it would be just have you done damage. So then it would flip the metal vessel, and then you would give it haste until end of turn. I will get into the metal vessel and what it flips to in a moment, but before that, we have the 7th dungeon, Amon. In Magi, there's a bunch of dungeons. I believe there's 72 different dungeons, each of them having a metal vessel with a djinn in it, which kind of is like the final treasure. So there would be a couple of these cards for the different ones you'd see, but it is a 2 in a red legendary enchant aura saga. So this is a bit of a new combination of types. I don't believe we have any aura sagas. We do now have saga creatures thanks to Final Fantasy, but here's how it reads. When it enters, it does the saga stuff, puts a counter on it. So the first chapter of the saga is enchant target land. The 7th dungeon deals 1 damage to all creatures you control. The dungeons are all about different traps and trials. So usually the first few chapters will be some way of punishing you, but the final chapter will usually be very good. Chapter 2 deals 3 damage to yourself, so instead of your creatures, it deals damage to you. And the third chapter, you create 6 treasure tokens, and then you can search either for Amon's Metal Vessel, the card, and put it onto the battlefield, and it'll gain indestructible until end of turn, so people can't like remove it right away. Or if you don't search for Amon's Metal Vessel, you can choose to search for a non-legendary equipment and put it into your hand. It's kind of here to mimic the idea of you've completed the dungeon, here are all these treasures, and here is the metal vessel, so you can go search it out of your library if you need to. But I didn't want it to be just kind of like dead at the end, if not, because I feel like paying the 3 cost, waiting 3 turns just to get 6 treasures felt bad, so I also added the ability to just find a different equipment. This is if you already have Amon's Metal Vessel in hand, you may just choose to find a different equipment. Or other decks may just want this card to search for equipment. Alrighty, now getting on to the cards we've been talking about this whole time, we have Amon's Metal Vessel. Amon's Metal Vessel is a 2-cost legendary artifact equipment where the equipped creature gets +2/+0, and then you can pay 1 in red, and the equipped creature gets +1 attack. It has an equip cost of 2, but if you're equipping it to Alibaba Saluja King's Vessel, the equip cost is 0. In the series, this is Alibaba's metal vessel that he uses. So now we see the metal vessel and Alibaba. So what happens when you Jin equipped? Well, you get the far right card, Alibaba Saluja Full Jin Equipped. This would be on the back side of the metal vessel. I struggled a bit with trying to figure out how to make a 2-sided card symbol, so you'll have to ignore that. But the backside would be Alibaba Saluja Full Jin Equipped, which is a human Jin vessel that is a 5/7 with a new keyword called Invulnerable, which means that this creature cannot be destroyed except by a source with the vessel subtype. So it's kind of a worse version of Indestructible. I felt like giving them Indestructible didn't fit right because people with metal vessels can lose in the series, but it's typically only against other people who are using a metal vessel or like having a full Jin equip, so something like this. Now, for Alibaba's second ability, if Alibaba were to be dealt damage by a red source, instead put that many counters on him, where X is the amount of damage dealt. Alibaba's all about burn spells. I mentioned before, you need to deal damage before you can even flip him. So it's a lot about throwing burn damage to your opponents and then damaging him with burn spells as well, because that will increase his power, which ties into his last ability, where you can pay X, X, and then 3 red to deal damage equal to his power up to X targets. X cannot be 0. So right off the bat, if you haven't even buffed him at all, if you pay 5 mana, you get to fling 5 damage at a target. But as you continue to buff him, you can pay into it and throw damage at a bunch of targets. I could see there being a cool way of like finding a way to ping him for a bunch and then paying into that big spell to target all 3 of your opponents and wipe them out. I think there's a lot of cool opportunity with this sort of line of having creatures that have the Jin equipped and then the different dungeons that search for them. I think this would be so cool to see, and this is just a series I would love to just have more people know about, and I think it also fits really well into Magic. The series is based off Arabian Nights, and I believe one of the first ever Magic sets was also based off something similar, so I think it fits very well. And we're getting a lot more of like desert themed stuff in Magic, so I think it's very fitting and could transition very well into a Magic set.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. I really like that tie back to the Arabian Nights, one of the very first Magic sets. Really cool stuff. I can't speak to like how well the mechanics demonstrate anything because I don't know the series, but it seems like they do well. And I really like the idea of, utilizing specific cards from the set that, coincide with each other. So overall, great stuff. These are just a few of the sets that we really wanted to see personally. Feel free to let us know if you would change anything about the specific cards we included, though.
Yeah, and if you would like to see any other sets and some of our ideas on how we would do those, please drop those in the comments below. And if you are interested in seeing more cards for a certain set, also let us know.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to ask any questions. Check out our other videos while you're here. Leave a like and subscribe. Support us on Patreon using the link below. And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.